When I was a young minister, I believed with my whole heart that every single day I was either leading people to heaven or leading them to hell. Think about that. Every word, every handshake, every sermon, it all carried eternal weight. And I carried that weight on my shoulders. That's what religion does. It doesn't just ask you to believe something, it places you under duress. Christians today and many other religious believers are living under a fear based framework. In the afterlife, the threat of eternal damnation, and in the present life, a God who is always watching, always judging, always ready to punish. And when they invite you into their faith, it's rarely an invitation to joy. It's an invitation to join them in their fear. That's not just persuasion, that's psychological coercion, that's spiritual blackmail dressed up as good news. So, what should our response be? What do we do when people live under this kind of fear? What do we do when they invite us to share in it? And how do we actually help? That's what today's conversation is going to be about. Let's start with understanding the reality. For many Christians, the afterlife is a threat of eternal punishment. Eternal damnation is not a small fear, it's infinite suffering with no escape clause. Even the possibility of that outcome creates paralyzing anxiety. You can see it in my comments. Many Christians are taught this from early childhood when the imagination is most vulnerable. The fear becomes a baseline emotional reality long before it's rationally examined. Every choice, every doubt, every wrong thought is framed as potentially tipping the scale toward eternal torture. This is less a belief than a psychological trap. The present life then becomes constant surveillance. God is seen as a warden. A vengeful, intervening deity isn't just watching, he's punishing, correcting, and testing. That creates the sense of living in a cosmic panopticon where even private thoughts are policed. Over time, believers don't just fear God, they fear themselves. Their own mind becomes a suspect, their own body a liability. If your right hand offends you, cut it off. This creates a perpetual guilt cycle. Even small mistakes are infused with eternal consequence. Confession, repentance, and rededication become ongoing rituals to manage this inner pressure disguised as peace. That pressure often reveals itself in the invitations framed by damnation. This is a sales pitch by threat. The invitation to church or conversion is rarely neutral. It's presented as, come with me or risk eternal regret. That's a contagion of fear. Believers often feel obligated to recruit not out of genuine joy or connection, but because not warning you would itself be a sin. Misery loves company. If they're living in fear, the only relief is getting others to validate that fear by joining it. Let's take a look at this through my personal window. Leading people to heaven or hell with every decision. This creates a binary worldview. As a young minister, I wasn't just preaching sermons, I was carrying the unbearable burden of eternal outcomes on my shoulders. Every interaction was framed as salvation or damnation. That kind of belief system manufactures a constant crisis. There's no room for rest or nuance because eternity is always at stake. This is why we call it coercion and not persuasion. When the stakes are eternal torture, choice is not really choice, it's blackmail. This isn't just abstract theology. It's the lived reality of millions of people who wake up every day under the pressure of both eternal threat and constant surveillance. Understanding this makes clear why conversations with Christians can feel so charged. It's not just about ideas, it's about survival as they've been taught to imagine it. For them, it is literally eternal life or eternal death. So now that we've unpacked this, what should be our proper response to this reality? Well, first, I'd say clarity before condemnation. Most Christians didn't design the system, they inherited it through culture, through family, and community. Condemning them for being trapped only deepens their sense of shame. Fear does not equal truth. The intensity of their fear doesn't validate the claims of their religion, it validates the power of the indoctrination. Fear is a poor metric of reality, but it is a strong measure of how deeply an idea has been implanted. Instead of reacting with anger or superiority, clarity allows us to see the situation plainly. They are victims of an architecture of control, not the villains who built it. Their fear is real, even if the source is not. Dismissing the fear outright, hell isn't real, stop worrying, can come across as cold or even dismissive. We can affirm the pain without affirming the framework. We can take the middle path. Empathy does not require agreement. We can validate their experience. I understand how terrifying that must feel for you, while still offering an alternative perspective that undermines the system's grip. If we mock or belittle their fear, we only reinforce the narrative that outsiders are cruel and untrustworthy. But if we collude with the fear, we keep them trapped. The balance is crucial. Fear often works best when it remains unnamed and unquestioned. Simply labeling it as coercion or psychological duress strips it of some of its invisible authority. When believers hear someone says what you're experiencing is not love, it's control, it plants a seed. The frame shifts from divine truth to human manipulation. I remember sharing a story with a coworker one time about me trying to be better about submitting to my pastor as my spiritual authority. In just a few words, he planted a seed that changed the trajectory of my life. He said, Durante, that sounds like abuse. After thinking about it for about 5 seconds, I was in tears because he was absolutely right. And he was the first person who created the space to call it what it was. Once fear is exposed as a tactic rather than a truth, it begins to lose its grip. People then can begin to see that the terror was manufactured, not revealed. If our response skips clarity, empathy, or naming, we risk one or two extremes: harsh condemnation that alienates, or soft enabling that keeps people in chains. But by holding all three together, clarity, empathy, and naming, we create space for transformation. We become not just the critics of religion, but guides out of coercion. Okay, so then what should our proper response to their invitations be like? Well, clearly, refuse the premise. Avoid the trap of what if. Many invitations hinge on a hypothetical. But what if hell is real? What if you could see your family again? This question is designed to pull you into their framework where fear dictates the logic. By refusing the premise, you step outside the frame entirely. Instead of debating hell's geography or heaven's gates, you reveal the strategy. If your belief needs threats to keep people loyal, maybe it's not about love at all. This undermines the coercive logic at its roots. You're not rejecting their invitation rudely, you're shining light on the mechanism that makes the invitation feel urgent. Their frame is built on avoidance, avoiding hell, avoiding God's wrath. Flipping the frame means centering the conversation on pursuit, pursuing freedom, dignity, joy, and love without strings attached. By asking, do you believe love needs threats to be real? You make them face the contradiction in their system. The question itself does the work without needing a sermon. You shift the ground from protect yourself from damnation to choose a life grounded in flourishing. That's a different conversation entirely, one where fear no longer holds the mic. It's possible to care about a person without agreeing to every invitation they extend. You can listen respectfully while still saying, I'm not interested in this conversation. Their sense of urgency is real for them, but it doesn't have to be transferred to you. You are not responsible for managing their anxiety about your soul. By calmly setting boundaries, you show them what life outside of coercion looks like: engagement without pressure, dignity without fear, and relationship without manipulation. Invitations into fear driven faith are not neutral. They are extensions of coercion. If you enter the conversation on their terms, you've already ceded the ground. By refusing the premise, flipping the frame, and setting boundaries, you reclaim your freedom while also modeling a healthier way of relating. This is not about winning debates, it's about embodying liberation in the face of manipulation. So, understanding this, how do we truly help people that are in these coercive environments, whether it be religion, politics, or culture? Number one, offer safe exits. For many Christians, the fear of hell is only part of the chain. Leaving also means risking family rejection, social isolation, and cultural exile. It's not just a theological shift, it's an existential uprooting. That's why creating spaces like Bridge City Global, where we have our Sunday sessions, is so critical. When people see they won't be alone, the grip of fear loosens. Belief loses much of its power once isolation is no longer the price of freedom. This can look like discussion groups, online communities, mentoring, or simply being a consistent voice of care in someone's life. A safe landing place makes even considering the leap possible. We also have to normalize doubt. Within Christianity, doubt is often framed as weakness or rebellion. But in reality, doubt is evidence of intellectual honesty and moral courage. By treating doubt as normal, even necessary, you help believers reframe their own inner voice as a friend, not an enemy. Once people realize doubt isn't the devil, it becomes the crack in the wall where light begins to pour in. This next one is where the work is really needed at. Model joy beyond fear. This is the strongest apologetic. Fear driven faith thrives by claiming that life without God is empty, hopeless, or chaotic. The best counter is not a set of arguments, but a living example of joy, creativity, and purpose outside of superstition. When people see others living meaningfully without constant anxiety about damnation, it helps them imagine a life beyond the walls of fear. This is contagious freedom. Just as fear spreads, so does joy. Your own sense of flourishing becomes an invitation far more powerful than any sermon or debate. Another consideration is the language of liberation. Positioning yourself as anti Christian reinforces the us versus them dynamic and makes believers defensive. This is why I often remind people that I'm not necessarily anti religious, I'm anti superstition, and you do with that what thou wilt. But framing yourself as anti coercion and pro human flourishing is getting closer to the point. By framing yourself as anti coercion and pro human flourishing creates common ground. Instead of fighting people, you're fighting fear. Instead of attacking identity, you're affirming dignity. This makes our message accessible to those on the edge of leaving who may still feel protective of their Christian identity. The goal isn't to win arguments, it's to set people free from psychological bondage. That requires a tone of invitation, not antagonism. In short, recognize Christians as people under psychological duress, not enemies. Refuse invitations framed in threats and expose the coercion beneath them. Provide bridges out, pun intended, safe communities, normalized doubt, joyful models, and liberating language. This turns the critique of religion into a constructive path forward, not just tearing down fear, but building up freedom. So let's bring it home. Christians are living under psychological duress. Their invitations are framed by fear, not freedom. Our proper response is clarity, empathy, and boundaries. And our deeper calling is to build bridges, to create communities, normalize doubt, model joy, and speak the language of liberation unashamedly and unapologetically. The way forward is not just about exposing the chains, it's about showing the world what life looks like once the chains are gone. And when people see that, when they see freedom lived out in dignity, courage, and joy, fear loses its power. That's how we help. That's how we change lives. And that's how we keep rising. Lift Off Weekend registration is live for October, and I am absolutely excited. I'll be spending 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, learning from, loving on, and leading with our core team and group as we get our ship together. You had to be here Sunday to catch that one. And we'll be working on lifting our first official communities in LA and San Diego. This is absolutely exciting. But that's not all. Our SoCal team is coming together to host our very first ticketed event. And here's the kicker: one of our core members is none other than Robert Richmond, co founder of Zappos Insights and creator of the XPIL experience. How wild is that? He and I are teaming up to craft a transformative event designed to help you deprogram what no longer serves you, reprogram your life with clarity and intention, and rise into impact. Southern California resident or not, if this resonates with you, registration is open. Not only will I be bringing my best work to the platform in support of your next chapter, but you will also have access to world-class strategy and actionable insight from one of the world's leading authorities in mindset and transformation. I'm not kidding. You got to look him up. When you leave Rise, you will be lighter, clearer, and stronger, ready to create change in your life and the world around you. Meet me in LA or San Diego in October and let's rise together. Get your tickets. The link is in the description. We're picking up steam and it's time for everybody to meet the team. And by team, I mean every single one of you who've already tapped in. If that's you, keep an eye on your email over the next week because I want to start bringing you all together on one platform so that you can start seeing the progress in real time and start feeling some of that synergy we're starting to feel in SoCal. If you haven't tapped in yet, this is the moment. The link is waiting for you in the description. Also, if you're near the Mississippi area, join me on October 16th at Mississippi State University. I'm going to be sharing my story and my mission, courtesy of the Freethinkers, Atheists, and Agnostic Students organization there. And if you are a part of our Bridge City Global family, I'll see you this Sunday at noon for part 2 of our homecoming conversation. And last but not least, consider supporting the channel and community through our giving channels below. If you'd like to support Bridge City specifically as a member, use the Bridge City PayPal link in the description. That's all I have for you today, fam. Until next time, keep rising.